The afternoon light spills across my drafting table, illuminating the metallic copper accents I've added to the design. I'm tweaking the letter spacing on my brother Mason and Brooke's engagement invitations for the third time. Perfect. Almost perfect. My brother deserves nothing less. My phone buzzes against the oak surface, dancing dangerously close to my coffee mug. Mason's name lights up the screen, and a reflexive smile touches my lips. Party this weekend is super tight. Just family. Hope you understand. My hands freeze mid-adjustment. I read the message again, certain I've misunderstood. The delicate brush pen slips from my fingers, leaving an unwelcome streak across the sample invitation. What? I whisper to my empty apartment. As I reach for my phone, my coffee mug tips. The dark liquid seeps into my sketches, but I barely notice. Instead, my eyes are fixed on the framed photo beside my workspace. Mason, grinning in his uniform, standing next to 3 large care packages I'd spent weeks assembling. The ones I'd stayed up all night packing, so they'd make the military mail deadline. The ones that included his favorite homemade cookies, despite my having a work deadline the next morning. The care packages he'd called a lifesaver during his deployment. That ink stain felt like a small crack spreading across my heart. One of many small cracks I'd ignored for years and years. Now, this single drop of coffee was connecting them, threatening to become one great fault line. I couldn't move. I just stared at the spreading ink as if it were happening to someone else. The sounds of the world faded, and the silence of my apartment felt deafening. I reached for a tissue to blot the stain, then stopped. It felt futile, like all my efforts up to this point. It's just a misunderstanding, I told myself, my voice dissolving into the air. Yes, Dad would surely explain the true meaning behind my brother's clumsy words. Clinging to that last sliver of hope, I dialed my father's number with a trembling hand. Monroe? Dad's voice came through after 4 rings, distracted and slightly annoyed. Everything okay? Dad, Mason just texted me about some party this weekend for his engagement. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. There must be some confusion. A beat of silence, followed by a sigh. It's just a get-together, Monroe. Nothing formal. But I'm his sister. I've been working on their actual invitation designs all week, I said, pressing my fingers against the bridge of my nose. Monroe, Dad's tone shifted to the dismissive one I knew too well. It's a small thing at Brooke's parents' lake house. Don't make this a thing, okay? You know how your brother gets when everyone starts making demands. When I make demands, the unspoken accusation hung between us. Right? I managed, my throat tightening. Of course. I hung up before he could hear the crack in my voice. The afternoon light felt colder now. I stared at my design work. Hours of unpaid labor for a brother who couldn't even be bothered to invite me to his pre-wedding celebration. My mind flashed to 6 months ago. The 3 a.m. call from Mason in Germany, desperate because his bank card had been compromised. I remember transferring him $2,000 from my carefully managed savings without hesitation. Emergency money he still hadn't repaid. I thought about the 3 nights I spent designing their engagement announcement, when Brooke decided she just wasn't feeling the professional one they'd paid for. How I'd missed my friend Diane's birthday dinner to finish it by their deadline. The 18 months of his deployment when I sent a care package every single month. When I checked in on Mom and Dad twice a week. When I helped Brooke move into their apartment so it would be ready when he returned. I remember my Grandma May, at last year's Thanksgiving, quietly squeezing my hand in the noisy dining room and whispering, Monroe, you give too much. You need to save some of that love for yourself. I had just smiled and nodded then. Because my efforts had always been like air. Essential but invisible. My phone pinged again. My cousin, Tara. Just got the invite for M&B's party. You coming up to the lake this weekend? My stomach twisted. Invite, I whispered, typing back. What invite? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Oh, awkward. Thought you'd be there. It's at the Hendersons' lake house. Looks like the whole crew is going. I asked her to forward it to me. A request met with an uncomfortable delay before it arrived in my inbox. The screen glowed with a cheerful, nautical design. Join us for a lakeside engagement celebration. The details swam before my eyes, but one thing became unmistakably clear. This was no intimate gathering. The guest count was 120 plus. I scrolled through names, recognizing Mason's work colleagues, distant cousins, Brooke's high school friends. Everyone, it seemed, except me. My phone rang. Dad again. He spoke before I could. Your brother has his reasons, Monroe. Maybe he thought you'd be uncomfortable with so many people. You know how you get. How I get. My voice was barely a whisper. Just respect his decision. That's all I'm asking. After we hung up, I sat motionless, staring at my bank account on my laptop screen. Years of careful saving. Years of choosing family obligations over personal dreams. My cursor hovered over the Book Now button for the Aspen ski resort I'd daydreamed about for years. The one I'd put off visiting because something more important, someone more important, always needed me. Not anymore. I pressed Book Now. First class ticket. Mountain View Suite. 6 days. As the confirmation email arrived, I snapped a photo of my passport beside my plane ticket confirmation. With steady fingers, I uploaded it to Instagram. When you're not on the list, you make your own. The first-class cabin surrounded me with a quiet luxury I'd never allowed myself to experience. Soft leather cradled my shoulders as I sipped complimentary champagne. The bubbles danced on my tongue, a strange cocktail of guilt and exhilaration flooding my system, stronger than the drink in my hand. Another? The flight attendant gestured to my nearly empty glass. Yes, the word emerged without hesitation, without the familiar mental calculation of whether I deserved the indulgence. Thank you. This single flight cost more than a month's rent on my apartment. But 6 years of emergency funds sat untouched in my account. The same funds that were always available when Mason needed them. The seatbelt sign chimed off, and I breathed deeper than I had in years. The Mountain View Suite at the Aspen Lodge made my apartment look like a storage closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed snow-capped peaks bathed in an alpenglow that turned the white slopes to rose gold. The king bed could fit 4 of me. The bathroom gleamed with marble I'd only seen in design magazines. I stood before the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Her eyes held a wildness I hadn't seen before, part terror, part defiance. Who are you? I whispered to my reflection. On the nightstand, my phone vibrated for the 12th time in an hour. Dad's name flashed on the screen, then disappeared as I silenced it. A text from Mom already waited, unread, along with 3 from Mason and 1 from Brooke. I placed the phone face down without checking the messages. Whatever family fire needed extinguishing, they'd have to find another bucket. What did you say? The next morning, I clutched my coffee mug tighter as Tara's face filled my tablet screen. I wasn't supposed to hear it. Tara's voice dropped. Brooke was talking to her sister in the bathroom. She said, and I quote, "We just thought Monroe would bring down the vibe. Then something about how you're always so serious and make everything into a big deal." The coffee turned bitter on my tongue. Bring down the vibe? Mason didn't defend you, Tara continued, her eyes darting away from the camera. He just nodded along. A text from Mom pinged. "I'm sorry about all this, sweetheart. But you know how your father and brother get when they've made up their minds. I hope you understand. This isn't the first time," Tara added, hesitating. "Remember Thanksgiving last year? And Mason's homecoming celebration? What about them?" But even as I asked, the puzzle pieces clicked into place. The last-minute location changes, the vague invitations, the surprised looks when I showed up. They've been doing this for years, Monroe. I thought you knew. The realization settled like a stone in my stomach. I had been strategically uninvited from my own family for years. As I prepared for my first ski lesson, I noticed a voicemail from Grandma May. "Monroe? I'm glad to hear you're standing up for yourself for once." This old woman hasn't lived this long to watch such nonsense. You call me when you're ready to talk. Until then, enjoy every minute of that mountain air. I slid the phone into my pocket with a smile I wasn't expecting to find today. First time on the slopes? My instructor, Kai, adjusted my boot bindings with practiced hands. His weathered face sported decades of laugh lines and a perpetual squint from years facing snow glare. First time doing anything just for me, I admitted. He nodded, understanding far more than I'd said. Got yourself some good company then. By afternoon, I joined a group of solo travelers at the lodge. A retired teacher, a widower celebrating his birthday, a young woman escaping a breakup. They welcomed me without questions about family or obligations. We shared stories over hot chocolate as easily as if we'd known each other for years. My phone remained silent in my pocket. For entire stretches, I forgot it existed. The beginner slope wasn't much more than a gentle hill, but as I navigated down it without falling, triumph surged through me. The cold air stung my cheeks, and my laughter came out as vapor clouds in the mountain air. My body was remembering how to move without hesitation, how to lean into it rather than fight it. The lodge's great room buzzed with après-ski energy. A stone fireplace threw heat and light across comfortable seating clusters where new friendships were forming. I sank into a leather armchair, warming my hands around a mug of spiked cider, listening to a woman named Sophia tell a story about swimming with dolphins. I realized with a start that my phone hadn't vibrated in hours. I pulled it from my jacket. 15 missed calls and 32 unread messages. But instead of the familiar spike of anxiety, I felt only a curious detachment. Whatever crisis they were navigating, they were doing it without me. And they were surviving. And so was I. As the conversation around me swelled with laughter, I snapped a photo of the breathtaking mountain sunset visible through the windows. I posted it to Instagram with steady fingers. Good morning to a new life. Have you ever had to step away from family obligations to discover who you really are? 3 days into my Aspen escape, the knot that had lived between my shoulder blades for years had finally begun to loosen. Then, my phone buzzed against the polished oak side table. And buzzed again, and again. When it vibrated for the 6th time in under a minute, curiosity won. I set down my drink and picked up the device. 17 notifications from Tara. Complete meltdown happening. Call me now, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to silence it, to maintain this fragile peace I'd found. But another part, the part that had spent 3 decades witnessing my family's chaos from the front row, needed to know. I slipped outside onto the deserted terrace, where pristine snow reflected the resort's golden lights. Tara answered on the first ring, party noise exploding through the speaker. Oh my God, Monroe, you're missing so much drama. Her voice carried a mix of horror and delight. Mason's been flirting with his high school girlfriend, Kelly Winters, for the past hour. Right in front of Brooke. What? The word formed a visible cloud in the mountain air. Then Brooke threw her champagne in his face. The entire glass. Then stormed out screaming that the engagement is off. Despite everything, my stomach tightened. Old habits surfaced. My mind was already calculating how to fix this, what words might smooth things over. And then I remembered. I wasn't important enough to be invited. That's not even the worst part, Tara continued. After Brooke left, Mason punched the wall. Pretty sure he broke his hand. Your dad's losing it, and he and Mason got into a shouting match in front of everyone. I could picture it perfectly. Mason, red-faced and belligerent. Dad, making everything worse with his damage control. Mom, wringing her hands in a corner, pretending nothing was happening. Grandma May was the real MVP though, Tara added, lowering her voice. She walked right up to Mason, looked him dead in the eye, and said, and I'm quoting exactly, "This is what happens when you cut out the only responsible adult in your life." The entire room went silent. A strange sensation bubbled up from my chest, something between a laugh and a sob. For 32 years, I'd been the invisible support beam, the emergency contact, the 3 a.m. problem solver. Except this time, I wasn't. I should go, I said finally. I signed up for a moonlight snowshoe hike. Monroe? Did you hear what I said? Your brother is imploding. They know where I am, I said simply. I told them on Instagram 3 days ago. I ended the call and silenced my phone completely. 10 minutes later, I was crunching through pristine powder with 6 strangers and a guide named Ethan. The forest around us was silent except for our breathing and the soft compression of snow beneath our snowshoes. First time? Asked the woman beside me, Catherine. First time for everything, I admitted. First time snowshoeing. First time in Aspen. First time choosing myself over family drama. She laughed, a genuine sound. That last one's the hardest. Halfway up, Ethan paused our group at a clearing. The valley spread below us, lights twinkling like fallen stars. Above, the moon hung full and impossibly bright. Take a moment, he said quietly. Sometimes we get so focused on the climb that we forget to look around. At his words, something inside me broke open. A small, unexpected laugh escaped me. Perhaps my first genuine one in years. Catherine smiled beside me, and 2 other hikers joined in, our laughter rising like steam into the night sky. I am not responsible for fixing their mess. The thought arrived with such clarity it stopped my breath. All these years, I'd been the peacemaker, the damage control specialist. But maybe, just maybe, my absence was exactly what they needed. 3 hours later, muscles pleasantly aching, I returned to my room and turned my phone back on. The notifications cascaded like an avalanche. 14 texts from Mason, escalating from an angry, "Where the hell are you?" to an accusatory, "This wouldn't have happened if you were there," to a desperate, "Please, I need you to fix this. Call me." 8 missed calls from Dad, followed by a text that made my jaw clench. "We needed you. You abandoned your family when it mattered most." 3 tearful voicemails from Mom, each ending with her signature, "Please don't make this a thing, honey." And 1 message from Brooke, sent 30 minutes ago, "I need help. Mason's a mess. Can you talk some sense into him?" My thumb hovered over Mason's message. Muscle memory nearly took over. For a heartbeat, I considered what I'd always done. Step in, smooth things over, absorb the blame, fix the unfixable. Instead, I opened my contacts. I found Mason's name and pressed block contact. The screen asked if I was sure. I'd never been more certain of anything. I blocked Dad next, then Mom, then Brooke. Each tap felt like setting down a heavy burden I'd carried so long I forgot it wasn't mine. I called the front desk. "Hello, this is room 342. I'd like to extend my stay by 4 more days, please." Afterward, I took a selfie by the fireplace, the flames casting a warm glow across my face. I'd never looked more at peace. I posted it with a caption that would have been unthinkable just days ago. 0 regrets. 100% peace. Then I silenced my phone, placed it on the nightstand, and for the first time in my adult life, I slept without waiting for it to ring. A week later, I was gliding down a blue run that would have terrified me before when my phone vibrated. For a blissful moment, I considered ignoring it, but something made me slow my descent. Grandma May's name lit up my screen. She deserved an answer. "Monroe," her voice crackled. "They're losing their minds trying to reach you. I needed some space." "Space," she snorted. "Your brother has left 17 voicemails. Your father even sent an apology text. Your mother made him, of course, but still." I closed my eyes, feeling the sun on my face. "And Brooke's sister showed up at your apartment yesterday. Found nothing but your neighbor watering your plants. I asked Diane to check on them," I murmured. "Where are you, honey?" For the first time in days, I smiled, a real smile that reached my eyes. Somewhere I should have gone years ago. As I entered the lodge lobby, Jeanette, the concierge, waved. "Monroe, the Hendersons wondered if you'd join them tonight. They're doing a family dinner at their cabin." The Hendersons. a retired couple I chatted with. They had no obligation to me. They wanted nothing fixed, designed, or solved. They simply enjoyed my company. I'd love to, I answered, and the simplicity of the exchange nearly brought tears to my eyes. Later, in my room, I opened the leather-bound journal I'd purchased. I flipped past days of entries, watching my handwriting transform from shaky and uncertain to bold and flowing. Day 1 arrived broken, wondering if I've made a terrible mistake. Day 5. Skied my first blue run. Fell twice. Got up twice. No one seemed disappointed in me. Day 7. I recognized my reflection again. I pressed my pen to a fresh page. Day 8. The woman who arrived is not the woman who will leave. In the resort's wellness center, Dr. Winters watched me from across her sunlit office. "You've made a deliberate choice to disengage," she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, turning my silenced phone over in my hands. 67 unopened notifications. "Tell me about your family," she suggested. The unfiltered version. And I did. The words poured out like a spring runoff. The care packages, the money, the uncompensated designs, the missed birthdays, the depleted savings. Going back to those patterns would be self-destruction, I concluded, surprised by my own certainty. Dr. Winters nodded. And now they're realizing what they've lost. Are they? I asked, not entirely convinced. People rarely change until the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of changing, she replied. Your absence has tipped that balance. Back in my room, a new message from Tara appeared. Grandma May moved into your parents' guest room. Says she's setting things straight. Dad nearly had an aneurysm. I smiled. Another message followed quickly. Mason admitted to your dad that they've taken you for granted. Dad actually agreed. I nearly fell off my chair. Before I could respond, a video message arrived from Brooke. I hesitated, then played it. Her face appeared, eyes red and puffy. Monroe, she began, her voice breaking. I figured you wouldn't answer my calls, and I wanted to. I wanted to apologize to your face. Words in a text just don't feel like enough. I've been awful to you. Not just about the party. For months, years, really. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. No careful makeup. No rehearsed speech. I don't know why you'd forgive me, but I hope you'll let me try to make it right. I set my phone down, emotions swirling. Just then, the front desk called. Miss Taylor, there's a delivery for you downstairs. It was a cream-colored envelope, addressed in Mason's unmistakable handwriting. This was 2 days after the party meltdown. My name was written with unusual care. Inside, a single page began, Monroe. Grandma told me, you broke this with your own 2 hands. She's right. I've been taking you for granted. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need to try to be someone who can talk to you again, as a person. I stood motionless in the grand lobby, snow falling softly beyond the windows, wondering how long the journey back to forgiveness should take. I folded my last sweater, cream cashmere I treated myself to, and tucked it into my suitcase. 9 days ago, I'd thrown clothes into this same bag with trembling hands. Today, my movements were measured, deliberate. My phone buzzed. Dad again. Just checking what time we should pick you up tomorrow. The message sent a faint pang through my chest. The old me would have jumped at the offer, seeing it as proof of their love. I was the one who waited at the airport, a passive passenger. But not anymore. I pictured the clear Aspen sky, the single track my skis had carved in the snow. The feeling of falling and getting back up on my own. I wouldn't be waiting for them in the arrivals hall. I would meet them on my own time, in my own car. It was a small difference, but for me, it was a decisive, non-negotiable step in taking back my own life. I typed my response without hesitation. No need. I've arranged a rental car. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Seems unnecessary. We don't mind. I replied, quietly but firmly. I do. That simple phrase seemed to contain all of the new me. I silenced my notifications and looked out at the mountains. I would no longer be swayed by someone else's agenda. I spotted them through Meridian's window before entering. Dad checking his watch, Mom nervously stirring her tea, Mason with his arm around Brooke. The tableau of impatience was so familiar it almost pulled me back into old patterns. I straightened my shoulders and pushed open the door. Monroe. Mom spotted me first. We saved you your favorite corner spot. I slid into the empty chair, setting down my leather portfolio. The weight of it grounded me. You look different, Mason said, squinting. Skiing agrees with me, I answered, making eye contact with the barista instead of my brother. Well, Dad cleared his throat, taking charge. Let's just put this unfortunate business behind us. Your mother's been beside herself, and Mason and Brooke need help planning the rescheduled engagement party. Yes, Brooke nodded eagerly. We're thinking the first weekend in April. I've already created a spreadsheet. Your tasks are highlighted in yellow. My mother reached across the table, her trembling fingers covering mine. Please, honey, the family needs to stay together. I gently removed my hand from beneath hers and opened my portfolio. Before we move forward, we need to address what happened. Monroe, Dad warned, don't dwell on unpleasantness. I'm not dwelling, I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm. I'm establishing context. I withdrew a sheet of paper. On February 16th of last year, Mason called at 3 a.m. from Germany. His bank card was compromised. I transferred $2,000 from my emergency fund within 10 minutes. I looked directly at my brother. That loan remains unpaid. Mason shifted uncomfortably. I've been meaning to. Last September, I continued, I missed Diane's birthday dinner to finish your engagement announcement because Brooke wasn't feeling the professional design you'd already paid for. And here, I placed my phone on the table. Are the texts from Dad telling me to not make this a thing when I was excluded from a 120-person party? A heavy, unfamiliar silence fell across our table. I'm not here to accuse, I said, folding my hands. I'm here to establish boundaries. Dad's face reddened. Now, see here, Jack, Mom interjected with uncharacteristic firmness. Let her speak. I pulled out another sheet of paper. This is what I will need from each of you moving forward. They leaned forward, eyes scanning the typed list. 1. Acknowledgement of my time, effort, and contributions. 2. Advance notice for family events, minimum 2 weeks. 3. Repayment of outstanding loans within 6 months. 4. No more free design work. A 25% family discount only. 5. Respect for my no, without guilt trips or manipulation. If these boundaries are crossed, I continued, I will limit contact until the behavior changes. I've learned that love without respect isn't sustainable. And if we refuse this ultimatum, Dad's voice wavered, then you'll be making a choice about what kind of relationship you want with me, I said, straightening the papers. And I'll respect your choice by making my own. Mason wiped an unexpected tear. Monroe, I didn't realize. I know, I said, softening slightly. That's part of the problem. They seem reasonable, Mom offered tentatively, glancing at Dad. Brooke's eyebrows arched. So you're not helping with the wedding planning? I'll help within these parameters, I answered. But there's something else. I've accepted a 6-month design contract in Colorado. I start next month. You're leaving? Dad's fist hit the table. Just like that? I'm pursuing an opportunity, I corrected him. Just like you always encouraged Mason to do. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, then slumped back in his chair. I've been a terrible brother, haven't I? Mason leaned forward, his eyes red-rimmed. Before I could answer, the coffee shop door swung open, and Grandma May made her entrance. Well, look at you, she said, appraising me with approval. About time someone stood up for themselves in this family. She pulled up a chair. Now, she said, placing her weathered hands flat on the table. Let's talk about how this family moves forward. With a little more equity, and a lot more respect. I caught my reflection in the window. Shoulders back, chin level, eyes clear. The mountains gave me this gift. A woman who finally valued herself enough to demand others do the same. 6 months later, as I adjust the blinds in my Colorado apartment, the sight of the mountains still steals my breath. The crisp February air seeps through an inch of open window, a luxury I never allowed myself back home, where I paid the heating bills my parents claimed they couldn't afford. I run my fingers along the postcards pinned to my corkboard. Aspen, Boulder, Santa Fe, Denver. Each one a milestone marking my distance from the girl who'd cancel plans at the first hint of family need. My phone lights up with Mom's weekly video call. I take a deep breath before answering, remembering my therapist's advice. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you control. Monroe. Mom's face fills the screen. You look rested. I am. No explanation, no apology. That's new too. Your father was asking about your project for that coffee company, she says, pausing to fumble with her reading glasses. He saw their billboard off the highway. Said it had your signature style. Then, after a slight pause, she continues. And, well, your father misses you. He was wondering if you couldn't come home for the long weekend next month, just for a little bit. A familiar echo. A faint ache, like an old injury. The former me would have agreed in a heartbeat, frantically rearranging my work schedule to make it happen. I kept my smile and replied gently, It's so nice to hear you say that, Mom. But next month is really busy with a new project launch. When I have some time, I'll call you, and we'll plan a proper visit. By the way, did Mrs. Gable's roses bloom nicely this year? My mom looked taken aback for a second, then quickly recovered. Oh yes, they're magnificent. I was learning that setting boundaries wasn't about rejecting them. It was about gently guiding the conversation, taking back control of its direction. A text notification slides across my screen from Mason. Sample wedding invitations came today. We used your color scheme suggestion. Thanks, sis. No desperate plea for help. No last-minute crisis. Just acknowledgement. Progress. After we hang up, I open my laptop to an email from Tara with apartment listings in Denver. Consider me as a roommate, she's written. Colorado looks good on you. I sip my coffee and allow myself a moment of quiet pride. The family that once saw me only as a utility has begun the awkward, imperfect work of seeing me as a person. Grandma May's weekly letter sits unopened on my counter. Last week she wrote, Your father actually asked me how to make your mother's birthday special without putting the burden on you. First time in 40 years that man's asked for advice. I tucked the letter into my journal for later. My design business has tripled since moving here. On my coffee table sits the invitation. Mason and Brooks revised wedding plans. A simple ceremony, 30 guests. My name on the envelope in Mason's handwriting. Later, I'll meet with Jenna, a design student struggling with family expectations. The scholarship I established at a local college connected us. You're helping me give myself permission, she told me last week. Remembering this, the familiar heaviness of my upcoming speaking engagement at a women's retreat about boundaries begins to lift. Through the window, the setting sun paints my walls copper, the same metallic shade I was perfecting on Mason's original invitations the day everything changed. I rest my hand on the invitation. Tomorrow, I'll book a hotel room in my hometown. And then I will RSVP with a steady heart. I will be delighted to attend. It was no longer a duty to meet a family's expectations. It was the first, positive choice made by the new me, the me I found in the mountains, for a new kind of family relationship. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself first, because only then can you build a healthy path for love to travel between you and others.